Welcome back to the workshops for week 13 for VPA 105. We're just going to play with brushes now. So sometimes it's really nice to construct some type yourself. Actually, there's a few patterns that you can make and things like that with this that you see on the screen now. They're very simple. It's very simple line work. And as you can see, I've broken up a circle into 4 different sections. So we've got a whole circle, 3/4, half, and a quarter circle, and then we've got a line. Now this line is actually just made up, if I zoom in here for a little moment, this line is actually made up of tiny little rectangles. So there's white and black. So go ahead and make some of those. If we click on one, you can go up to the information up here and just see that they're quite small. So just make one and then you can just repeat it. So if I just copy that, I can just show you how to do that. So I'm just going to copy that in. And then what you can do is just hold with your Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC and your Shift button. If you can see, once I hold my Option key down, the cursor changes to a little bit of a copy. So you've got a white and a black arrow there. So I'm going to hold the Shift key down as well, just after I click it, just because that helps to keep it in a straight line. So then you can just drag that over. Now if I press Command D, it's just going to repeat that. So just Command D, very simple, very nice. Okay, so now what you want to do is just go and select every second one. So hold your Shift key down and just go and select every second one. And then just change the fill color to black. And there you have those. Now what you might want to do is actually make sure that you have a black line on the outside of each one, because when you put them all together, sometimes it can end up with a white on the background. However, I have a black one here and it still ends up with white on the background. So we'll just make that a little bit wider and we'll give it a go actually with white on the outside. Okay, so with this, just marquee select, so just click and drag across all of that and then go into your brushes palette here. You can see that I've got one already made, but we're just going to create a new brush and just create an art brush there. There's all different kinds of brushes here. So you've got calligraphic brush, scatter brush, art brush, bristle brush, and pattern brush. Now they all have different settings once you click OK. Learning how to make your own Illustrator brushes is a really important skill in Illustrator, so I really suggest that you have a little bit of a muck around with it. I've also added a tutorial up online this week in the videos folder, just on how to make a Illustrator brush. Also, the other thing I want to just note that there are loads of brushes online as well. So I needed some hair for something. So these are all hair brushes that somebody else created. You can just load them into your brushes palette, and then you can get a lot of brushes that way as well. So I'm just going to click OK for now, and you'll see that it just opens up this new dialog box. I'm just going to call it Line Art Brush 2 because I already have one in there. And I'm just going to say scale proportionately. You can also stretch to fit stroke length and stretch between guides. So there's just some options. I just want it to scale proportionately. And then just leave everything else. You'll have a few options in here, but just have a play with them if you want to. Okay, so then we have this brush here. Now what I've done is, after I have created the brush, all I've done with this, and if you look very closely here, you'll see that this is just a circle. So I've just grabbed my ellipse tool, and I'll just zoom back out again. Just grabbed my ellipse tool and I've just clicked and dragged that out, and then I can apply the brush. So there it is there. Then once you've made the brush once, the circle once, sorry, beg your pardon, you can just click and drag, same using your Option and Shift key just to keep it in line. And then I'm just going to make another one over here, and then another one over here. Now obviously you would do this on an artboard, so and then what I'm going to do is just keep this one whole but I'm going to go down to this one. I'm going to hit C, and that's the shortcut for the scissor tool. I'm just going to zoom in here and just show you what I'm going to do, because it's pretty hard to see here on the black line. But you'll see here that I've just got this cut mark. And what I'm going to do is just cut into the circle there. And then I'm going to hit P for my pen tool, and then minus. And then I'm going to grab that point, and I'm going to get rid of it. And then that second one there. So then I have a 3/4 circle. Now I'm just with the tool still selected. In fact, hit C. I'll just show you a little trick that's really good actually. If I hit Command while I have another tool selected, it will always take me back to my selection tool. So I'm going to do that because I had this other circle selected. And then as soon as I take my finger off the Command button or Control on a PC, then it will revert back to the scissor tool. So I'm just going to do the same thing again, but I'm going to add a second scissor mark up here as well, and then P and minus, and I'm going to just go and delete those points with my pen tool so that I have a half circle. And then press my space bar and pan over to this last one here, hit C for scissors, and then hit my Command button to select. Then I'm going to scissor into there, and of course into this last bit here, P and then minus, and I'm going to just go around and take out those vector points in that circle there until I have a 1/4 circle. And there you go. Now I have pretty much all the components to make this word over here. So I'll just show you how this was done. Now if I pan over it, you'll see this section from here to here is a line. This one from here to here is a 3/4 circle, and then I've just added another 1/4 circle underneath. So you can just see there's a little 1/4 circle there, and then there's the 3/4 circle here. The L is just a line, and I've just moved it behind. So the shortcut to move things to the back is Command Shift square, like right square bracket. To move it in front is Command Shift left square bracket. Oh, sorry, right square bracket to move it in front, left square bracket to move it behind. So yeah, and that same thing with the A. The A was a little bit tricky because usually with typefaces where you have these sorts of bowls happening here, they usually go below, slightly below the base line. So I'm just going to drag a rule out here, a guide out here, and I'll show you what I mean. So I've sort of lined the A and the Y up to the same point so they both go below the descender line. Now you could, bring this down a little bit more if you wanted to, and that would be perfectly fine. And in fact, I think that looks better. But just play around with the letters and then sort of move things, forward and back in on themselves as well. So that's just one way that you can experiment. So you can make all kinds of brushes, and then it's really simple geometric shapes to then create letter forms from it. It's a matter of experimenting with the Y, for example, if I zoom in on it. So here I have a half circle, so you can see it's going behind this line here, and then I've got another line here just to make this a little bit bigger because it looked a little bit weird just as a half circle. And then I've got a half circle here and a line here. So you can see here that it's really pretty seamless. Got a little keep your eye on these sorts of things here. You might want to move that. If you just get stuff like that, just move it down just a little bit. Just keep going until it disappears. Almost. That looks pretty good. So you want it to be relatively seamless so that it looks like a full letter. But this is a really nice effect. And the other thing that you can do with this, of course, if I just go over here and I create another artboard, so just grab your artboard tool over here, and I'm just going to click and drag an artboard out. and then hit V just to go back to my selection tool. What I'm going to do is grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to just click and drag out a rectangle, and then I'm going to go to my gradient tool, and here's one I prepared earlier, so that's great. Let's just add that in. Now you can just create your own gradients just by adding, so if I hover over here, you can see you can add another color in there. Green, that's pretty gnarly. Let's not do that. You know, you can add in all sorts of colors in there. You can move these over, so you can get brighter or softer gradients depending on how far apart they are. You can actually just click and drag that to get rid of it. So click and drag, and then what you have is sort of like a much softer gradient with less colors. And then what you can do is then in the last video, I showed you, how to do this kind of thing where you create these clipping masks with different shapes. So we're going to do basically the same thing here. I'm just going to pan across, and I'm going to grab all of this. You'll see that it selects the guide as well. I'm just going to marquee deselect that, holding the shift key down, and I'm going to press Command G to group all of that, and then I'm going to press Command C to copy it. I'm going to just come over here, and I'm going to select this object here, just maybe move it over a little bit. I'm going to double click in here, and I'm going to hit Command V, and you'll see that it appears inside the mask. Now if it's too small, you can hit E, too big, sorry, you can hit E, just make it a little bit smaller. You'll see that it might affect the stroke width, so you can actually just go up there and alter the stroke just to make it a little bit more palatable. That's not quite right, 6 is better. And just press Escape and V and just click anywhere outside to deselect. And then you've got this really nice kind of color through there, and that's a bit of fun, isn't it? So that's good. So that's one way to create some custom type with brushes. And just remember, the main principle is to create the components of letter form. So as long as you've got, it doesn't really matter if you create this kind of thing or you create some other kind of brush, as long as you've got a line and a full circle, 3/4 circle, half and a quarter circle, you can pretty much bespoke any kind of letter form you like, really. Okay, so just one little thing before I move on to the next brush. With this, in your transparency panel, don't forget to click out of here. So if you have this one selected and then you try to do some other work, it's not actually going to happen. So you might be able to draw a line, but you won't be able to do anything with it. So I'm just going to select that and delete that, but just double click on the main item, and that will take you back out to the normal artboard. Okay, so this is another kind of brush. As I said, there are loads of brushes online that you can download. It's actually a really good exercise to do that, because what you can actually do is have a look at the kinds of brushes that people create. Now this one, I needed some hair for that buffalo, so that's where this brush came from. But if you actually have a look at these brushes, and I'll just grab my line tool and hold down Shift and just draw a straight line. And if I go to my brushes palette where all of these hair brushes are, just click on this one, you can see actually it's just a series of lines. And if I reduce the stroke width, you can see that I get finer hair. And if I choose others, I get, there's a lot more lines that are closer together. Woolly hair and some sort of curly hair, that sort of thing. So these brushes can actually be really useful in just allowing you to see how they were constructed. So the other thing that you can do with brushes as well, if you wanted to actually create something new from them, what you can do is go up to Object and Expand Appearance, and what that will do is turn your brushes into all vectors. So then what you can do is come in, and with my selection tool, I can just come in there and I can grab one of those and turn it around, and I can do whatever I want with it. So that's really a nice thing to be able to do. So for now, I'll just delete that because what I did here was just use one of these brushes to create this hairy word here. So it's really easy to do. What I'm going to do is just grab that and put it down there for a little moment. Wait, let me, in a moment. Down there. And I'm just going to select B for brush, and I'm going to grab this brush here. And you can see that it's nice just to, you know, create something that's, you might not want to do what I just did then, just do a circle and then do the stroke. Sometimes they don't like to be all together, so you've just got to have an experiment. You know, if that's not sort of going where you want it to, yep, that's a little better. Just give that a go to do the whole thing. That's kind of nice. And then what this sort of allows you to do, really, I'm using a Wacom tablet with a pen. This sort of work is very difficult to do with a mouse or especially a touchpad. So if you don't have a Wacom tablet with a pen, I highly recommend that you invest in one if you want to do this kind of bespoke kind of typography. Obviously these sorts of things are really nice because it imbues the type with extra layers of meaning. So if, you know, something is about the word corresponds with the visual representation of the word, then you just add extra layers of meaning, which is really nice in some instances. Anyway, so have a play with those. Please, if you've got any questions, just add them to the discussion board and ask your lecturers. If you do end up doing some fantastic experiments with these two exercises this week, please share them on the discussion boards as well. We'd love to see what you're up to. Anyway, thanks for watching and have a great week.